They thought it would be hilarious to prove I was too old to notice anything. So my grandchildren set me up. A missing wallet. A fake emergency. A staged argument in the driveway that was loud enough for the neighbors to peek through their blinds. Then the final flourish. My oldest grandson filming my face up close while the other two laughed behind him, whispering, "Say it again. Tell us what year it is." I saw the phone. I saw the angle. I saw the little red dot that meant the camera was recording. And I smiled like I didn't. Because if 3 kids want to test whether an old man is still paying attention, they deserve a lesson that makes them pay attention for the rest of their lives. By Sunday night, they would be standing in front of 12 elders, sweating through their shirts, trying not to cry. By Sunday night, they would beg me to stop. And I would, because I am their grandfather, not their enemy. But I would stop on my terms, not theirs. My name is Harris Jackson. I am 68 years old, a grandfather of 3, and I have buried enough pride in my lifetime to know the difference between patience and surrender. Friday afternoon, my daughter dropped them off at my house with the usual chaos, backpacks thumping against my doorframe, shoes already scattered like landmines, the smell of cheap cologne and fruity shampoo mixing with my old house's cedar and lemon polish. Tyler came in first, 16, tall and confident in the way boys get when they think the world is theirs by default. He gave me a quick hug that barely touched skin. Madison followed, 14, eyes already scanning my living room like she was searching for the nearest exit from boredom. She had earbuds in and a look on her face that suggested silence was a language she considered superior. Noah dragged behind them, 10, clutching a game console like it was a medical device keeping him alive. My daughter, Claire, stood on the porch with her car keys in hand, already leaning away like she was being pulled by a rope. "Dad, just 2 nights," she said. "I have that conference. They'll be fine. You'll be fine." I could have told her what I saw in the kid's posture. The way Tyler didn't look at me long enough to see me. The way Madison's mouth tightened when she noticed my television wasn't huge. The way Noah's feet didn't even pause at my welcome mat, as if my home was just a loading screen. But my daughter looked tired in a way I recognized. The tired that comes from trying to hold up a life with both hands and still feeling it slip through your fingers. So I nodded. "Go. Drive safe." She sighed, relieved, kissed my cheek, and left. The moment her car disappeared, Tyler dropped his backpack on my hallway table, knocking my mail onto the floor. "Wi-Fi password?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I bent down, picked up my mail, and set it back in a neat pile. Tyler shifted his weight, impatient. Madison didn't even pretend to be interested. Noah stared at the router like it might speak. I turned and looked at Tyler. "Hello to you too." Tyler blinked like he'd forgotten greetings existed. "Hi, Grandpa. Wi-Fi?" I smiled. Not warm, not cold, just calm. "It's on the fridge," I said. "Right next to the list of house rules." Madison's eyes flicked up. "House rules?" I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and tapped the paper I'd taped there months ago, back when my grandkids still visited often enough to justify it. It wasn't a long list. Take your shoes off. Don't leave food in your rooms. If you borrow it, return it. If you break it, tell me. And at the bottom, written in the same block letters I used when I labeled my tools, "Speak to me like I am a person." Tyler read it, smirked, and looked at me like I was being dramatic. "Relax," he said. "We'll be good." I should tell you something about me. I am not a man who raises his voice. I learned a long time ago that yelling is what you do when you have no plan. When I was younger, I had a job that required calm under pressure. That calm stayed with me even after I stopped wearing the uniform. So when Tyler said relax, I didn't snap. I just watched him peel the paper off the fridge to get the Wi-Fi password, and then not bother sticking it back. Madison walked past me without speaking and headed straight for the guest room like she'd done this 100 times and hated it every time. Noah sat at my kitchen table, plugged in his console, and asked, "Do you have snacks?" I opened my pantry, pointed to the shelf, and said, "You can have an apple." He stared at the apples like they were museum pieces. "Do you have chips?" "I have apples." He made a face that wasn't quite disgust, but it was close, and that was the first hour. By the second hour, Tyler had turned my living room into his personal theater, feet on my coffee table, remote in hand, flipping channels without settling on any, like he needed movement to feel alive. Madison sat on my couch with her phone held high, taking pictures of my curtains, my lamp, my bookshelf, like she was documenting an archaeological site. Noah was on the floor, shouting at a game, his volume rising every time he lost. I made dinner. Real dinner. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, the kind of meal that smells like a home that expects people to sit down together. When I called them to the table, Tyler showed up last, phone in hand, thumbs moving. "Phone's down," I said. Tyler didn't look up. "I'm in the middle of something." Madison slid into a chair and kept scrolling, her fork already tapping the plate like she was bored before she took a bite. Noah asked if he could eat in front of the television. I looked at them. 3 children, my blood, my family, and all 3 of them treating me like the furniture that came with the house. I sat down slowly. "Phone's down," I repeated. Same tone, same calm. Tyler sighed and put his phone face down on the table like he was doing me a favor. Madison didn't. I held my hand out, palm up, and waited. She glanced at my hand and then at my face, like she was deciding whether I was worth arguing with. "I'm just checking something," she said. "I'm sure it's important," I replied. "But we eat together at this table, and we talk to each other like we matter." Noah swung his feet under the chair, already restless. Madison rolled her eyes, slow and dramatic, like I was being unreasonable. Then she set her phone down with a soft slap that carried an attitude all its own. We ate. I asked Noah about school. He shrugged. I asked Madison about her art club. She gave me one-word answers. I asked Tyler about his driving permit. He said he was going to get it eventually, and then asked if I had a newer car he could practice in. I said no. He laughed like I'd said something silly. "Why not?" he asked. "It's not like you go anywhere." That sentence landed on my table like a dropped knife. Not like you go anywhere. As if my days were empty because he didn't see them. As if my life began and ended with sitting in this chair waiting for children to show up and tolerate me. I chewed slowly, swallowed, and set my fork down. "Tyler," I said, "after dinner you're coming with me to the garage." Tyler frowned. "Why?" "Because I need help." He leaned back, suspicious. "With what?" "With something heavy." He hesitated, then nodded like he was agreeing to a chore that shouldn't exist. After dinner I took him to my garage and pointed to a large metal cabinet. "Open it," I said. He tugged at the handle and pulled it open. Inside were boxes labeled with black marker. Christmas lights, tools, emergency, photos. Tyler stared. "Okay." I reached into the back and pulled out an old wooden box about the size of a shoebox, worn smooth at the edges. "This," I said, "belongs to your grandmother." Madison's mother. My wife. Tyler's face shifted, the smirk fading. "You kept her stuff in the garage?" he asked, quieter. "I kept what I couldn't bear to look at every day," I said. I opened the box. Inside was a small stack of letters tied with ribbon, a pressed flower between wax paper, and an old watch with a cracked face. Tyler leaned in. "That's broken," he said. "It is now," I replied. He looked up. "What do you mean now?" I didn't answer right away. I lifted the watch carefully. The crack across the glass caught the light like a scar. "I fixed this watch 3 times," I said. "It stopped working once, and I got it going again. The band broke, and I repaired it. The glass got scratched, and I replaced it." Tyler stared at it like it was suddenly fragile. Last time I wore it, I continued, was at your grandmother's funeral. He swallowed. What happened? He asked. I closed the box and looked at him. What happened, I said, is that somebody went into my bedroom this afternoon while I was in the kitchen, opened my top drawer, took the watch out and dropped it. Tyler's eyes widened. I didn't say you did, I replied. He looked relieved too fast. But then I added, and whoever did it put it back in my drawer like they thought I wouldn't notice. Tyler's face went tight. Maybe it fell, he said. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe someone thought an old man wouldn't see a crack in glass. He stared at me, and for the first time since he walked into my house, he looked unsure. I'll talk to them, he said, too quick, too eager to end the conversation. I nodded. You do that. He went back inside. I stayed in the garage and stared at the cabinet for a long moment, the smell of motor oil and sawdust around me, familiar and steady. The watch hadn't fallen. I knew my drawers. I knew how I keep things. Someone had touched what was sacred to me, and then decided my feelings weren't worth an apology. That's what disrespect is, when you strip dignity off a person and convince yourself they won't bleed. I didn't want to punish my grandchildren. I didn't want to scare them. I wanted them to understand something simple. Respect is not a decoration you hang on people once they earn it. Respect is the foundation you stand on when you live in a family. And mine was cracking. That night, around midnight, I heard footsteps creeping down my hallway. I didn't move. I didn't announce myself. I just listened. A door creaked. My living room floorboards complained softly, the way old wood does when someone tries to sneak and fails. Then a whisper. Now, Tyler said low. Do it now. A second voice, Madison's, hushed and amused. He's asleep. A third voice, Noah, anxious. What if he wakes up? Tyler whispered back, impatient. He won't. He's old. I closed my eyes. Not anger. Not yet. Just something cold settling behind my ribs. The quiet certainty that my plan would not be gentle. I heard them moving around the living room. A drawer sliding open. The faint clink of keys. Then Tyler hissed, There. My car keys. My spare keys. The key to my locked file cabinet. My grandson had watched me enough to know where I kept them. Then the final piece, the soft click of my front door unlocking. I sat up in bed in the dark and stared at my ceiling. They weren't just disrespectful. They were becoming careless. And careless children grow into dangerous adults. I waited until the door shut again and their footsteps faded down the porch. Then I stood up, put on my robe, and walked to the kitchen. On the counter next to my coffee maker sat a small dish where I keep my hearing aids at night. One of them was missing. I looked at the empty spot, and I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so predictable it was almost pathetic. They were trying to make a joke out of me. They were trying to prove I was helpless. Fine. If they wanted a performance, I would give them one. But mine would have a lesson built into every scene. I opened my drawer, pulled out my old flip phone, and made one call. A man answered on the second ring. Harris, he said, everything okay? Earl, I replied. How fast can you get to the community hall tomorrow morning? A pause. Why? Because I'm starting a class, I said, and I need a few volunteers. Earl chuckled. You teaching again? Something like that. He didn't ask questions. Earl never did when my tone sounded like this. 8 o'clock, he said. I'll be there. I hung up, then made another call. Then another. By the time I went back to bed, I had a schedule, a roster, and a plan that made my jaw ache from clenching. They wanted to see what an old man could do. They were about to find out. Saturday morning, I let them sleep in. I made pancakes, bacon, and eggs. I set the table. I poured orange juice into glasses like it was a normal weekend. When Tyler stumbled into the kitchen, hair messy, eyes half closed, he froze when he saw the food. "Whoa," he said. "This is a lot." Madison came in behind him and stopped too, suspicious. Noah ran in, excited, and sat down immediately, reaching for bacon. Tyler looked around. "Why are you being nice?" I slid a plate in front of him. "Because you're my grandchildren." Madison narrowed her eyes. "What's the catch?" "No catch," I said. "Eat." They did, cautiously at first, like they expected me to announce a lecture mid-bite. I waited until they were halfway through the meal. Then I said, "After breakfast, we're going to the community hall." Tyler groaned. "Why?" "Because I need your help," I replied. Madison's mouth tightened. "With what?" "With a respect class," I said. Noah blinked. "A what class?" Tyler laughed once, sharp. "That's not a real thing." "It is today," I said. Tyler leaned forward. "Grandpa, come on. We're just here for the weekend." I looked him in the eye. "I'm aware," I said. "So am I." Madison set her fork down. "We didn't sign up for volunteering." "I didn't sign up to be treated like a prop," I replied. Silence. Tyler's face shifted, and I could see the calculation beginning. The moment a teenager realizes an adult is serious and starts deciding how to push back. He chose the easiest route. "Fine," he said, and picked up his phone. "Can I at least bring this?" I held my hand out again. He stared at it. I didn't move. He sighed and slapped the phone into my palm. Madison started to protest, but I held my hand out to her too without saying a word. She stared at me like I'd offended her. Then she set her phone down, jaw clenched. Noah looked panicked. "What about my game?" "Noah," I said, "you're coming with us." He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped when he saw my face. 10 minutes later, we were in my truck, the old one Tyler thought wasn't worth driving, heading toward the community hall on Maple Street. The hall used to be a school gym before they turned it into a senior center. I volunteer there twice a week. I don't talk about it much because I never saw the point in announcing kindness like it's an award. But the building matters to me. It smells like coffee, floor polish, and the quiet dignity of people who have survived decades without expecting applause. When we walked in, Tyler immediately stiffened. The main room was filled, not just with seniors, with a dozen long tables, folding chairs, and a whiteboard up front with big letters written in black marker. "The Jackson Family Respect Practicum." Madison stopped dead. "What is this?" Noah whispered. "Why are there so many old people?" Tyler's eyes flicked to me. "Grandpa, what did you do?" I didn't answer. Because that's when Earl walked up, grinning like he'd been waiting for this moment all week. Earl is 72, built like a retired bulldozer, with a shaved head and a laugh that shakes rooms. He used to run a construction crew. Now he runs the community hall's maintenance team, and he treats every volunteer like they're on his payroll. He looked at my grandchildren and smiled wide. "Well," he said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "these must be the recruits." Tyler blinked. "Recruits?" Earl clapped his hands once. "Line up." Madison looked around, alarmed. "Line up for what?" Earl pointed to a strip of blue tape on the floor. "Right there, shoulder to shoulder. Let's go." Noah stared at me like he wanted permission to run away. I gave him a gentle nudge. "Go on." They lined up, awkward and annoyed. The room quieted, and all eyes turned to them. That's when I stepped to the front and picked up a marker. "My name is Harris Jackson," I said, writing it on the board. "These are my grandchildren, Tyler, Madison, Noah." I wrote their names, too. They looked uncomfortable seeing their names displayed like that, like they were suddenly accountable. I turned and faced the room. "Everyone here has agreed to help me teach a lesson today," I said. "Not by yelling, not by shaming, by letting my grandchildren experience what it means to live in a world where respect is not optional." Tyler's voice cut in. This is ridiculous. Earl snapped his head toward Tyler. Recruit, you speak when addressed. Tyler stared at him. I'm not... Earl walked closer, eyes hard but not cruel. You're what? Tyler hesitated. Earl leaned in. Say it. Tyler's cheeks flushed. I'm not a recruit. Earl nodded slowly. Then you're a guest in our hall. Tyler's shoulders relaxed a fraction. Earl continued. And guests behave. The seniors in the room didn't laugh. They didn't clap. They just watched, steady and quiet like judges. Madison swallowed. Noah fidgeted. I pointed to 3 clipboards on a table. Your phones are locked in my truck, I said. You will get them back tonight if you complete today's schedule. Tyler's face went pale. You can't take our phones. I can, I replied. Because you are minors, you are under my supervision, and you're in my care this weekend. Madison's voice was sharp. This is punishment. It's training, I corrected. Tyler scoffed. For what? Saying hi wrong? I walked closer until I was a foot away from him. For thinking I don't go anywhere, I said quietly. For thinking my life is empty because you don't see it. For taking things that don't belong to you. Tyler's eyes widened. What are you talking about? I held his gaze. The watch, I said. Madison's face flickered. Noah looked down at his shoes. Tyler swallowed. That wasn't me. I know, I said. He looked confused. Because I saw who it was, I continued. Madison's head snapped up. You... I raised a hand. Today is not about that, I said. Today is about what happens when you treat elders like they are invisible. Madison's mouth opened, then closed. I turned to the room and nodded. Earl clapped his hands again. Stations, let's go. And that's how it began. My grandchildren spent the next 2 hours doing things they'd never bothered to imagine mattered. Tyler sat with an 80-year-old woman named Mrs. Delaney and learned how to write a check because she refused to use a debit card. Madison was assigned to Mr. Ruiz, 79, who had a tremor in his hands and needed help sorting his medication organizers for the week. She tried to rush, and he stopped her every time she moved too fast. No, he told her calmly. We do it right, or we don't do it. Noah was paired with a man named Sam who used a walker and told Noah stories about being 10 years old in a house with no heat, walking to school in the snow and thinking it was normal. Noah listened, wide-eyed, and for the first time all weekend, he wasn't asking for a snack or a screen. At first, my grandchildren were irritated. Tyler's posture screamed resentment. Madison's face stayed tight. Noah kept glancing at the door. Then something shifted. It happened when Mrs. Delaney looked at Tyler and said, My grandson doesn't visit me anymore. Tyler froze. Mrs. Delaney smiled sadly. He says he's busy, that he has school, that he has work. He doesn't look me in the eye when he says it. That's how I know he's lying. Tyler swallowed hard. She patted his hand. Your grandfather brought you here because he loves you. Don't waste that. Tyler didn't answer. He just stared down at the checkbook like it had suddenly become heavy. By noon, we moved to the second phase. Earl rolled out a cart stacked with 3 cardboard boxes. He set them on the floor in front of my grandchildren and said, Open them. Tyler looked suspicious but knelt and tore the tape. Inside were old tools, a hand crank can opener, a rotary phone, a heavy cast iron pan, a paper map folded into a rectangle, a needle and thread, a flashlight that needed batteries you had to insert the right way. Madison stared. What is this? Earl grinned. This is what your grandparents used before you carried a world in your pocket. Tyler scoffed. Okay, and? Earl held up the paper map like it was a sacred scroll. And today you are completing a scavenger run with these. Madison's face tightened. No. Earl's grin widened. Yes. Noah whispered, I don't know how to use any of that. Sam, with his walker, looked at Noah and said, Then you'll learn. I stepped forward and pointed to the whiteboard where I'd written 3 addresses. Station 1, I said, is the hardware store on Pine Street. Station 2 is the library. Station 3 is the diner on Oak. Tyler frowned. We're going out? Yes, I replied. And you're going to do it without your phones. Madison looked like she might explode. How are we supposed to find anything? I tapped the paper map. She stared at it like it was an insult. Earl handed Tyler the rotary phone. You will call each station when you arrive. This phone works. The numbers are on a card. Tyler held it like it was a snake. Noah looked terrified. I leaned down to Noah and said softly, You'll be okay. Stay with your brother and sister. Noah nodded, but his eyes were wide. Earl opened the front door. Go. They stepped out into the afternoon sunlight like prisoners released into an unfamiliar world. I followed behind them, not close enough to hover, but close enough to make sure they didn't do anything reckless. The first 10 minutes were pure frustration. Tyler tried to fold the map and failed, the paper springing back like it was alive. Madison snatched it from him, muttering, and tried to read it like it was written in code. Noah asked if we could just use the car's GPS. I said no. Tyler looked at me like I was enjoying this. I wasn't. I was watching them collide with inconvenience, because inconvenience is where respect grows. It forces you to rely on people, and when you rely on people, you learn they are real. At the hardware store, Tyler walked in with the map in his hand and asked the teenage cashier where Pine Street was. The cashier blinked. You're on Pine Street. Tyler's cheeks flushed. Madison walked past them, found the right aisle, and picked up what was on the scavenger list, 2 packs of AA batteries and a small screwdriver kit. At the library, they had to ask an elderly librarian for help finding a book using the card catalog computer. Madison tried to be impatient. The librarian didn't respond to impatience. She responded to tone. Madison adjusted her voice, and I watched her do it, like she was learning a new muscle. At the diner, they had to order lunch without looking at a screen. Noah panicked at the menu like it was too many choices. Sam, sitting at a booth nearby with Earl, called out, Pick something and commit. Noah picked grilled cheese. Tyler picked a burger. Madison picked soup, then looked annoyed at herself for choosing something old. But she ate it anyway. Then came the second hook, the moment that turned the day from annoying to unforgettable. When we walked back out of the diner, Tyler stopped short. His face drained. Madison followed his gaze and froze too. Noah clutched Tyler's sleeve. Parked near my truck was a police car, a real one, lights off, but unmistakable. An officer stood beside it with his arms folded. Tyler's voice went thin. Grandpa, what is that? I didn't answer right away. I just walked toward the officer. The officer was young, mid-30s, face calm, posture firm. I recognized him. Officer Keene. His mother's one of the seniors at the hall. He's been there enough times to know all of us. He nodded at me, then looked at my grandchildren. Afternoon, he said. Tyler swallowed. Are we in trouble? Officer Keene's eyes stayed on Tyler. Depends. Are you? Madison's voice shook. What is this about? Officer Keene held up a small, clear evidence bag. Inside it was my missing hearing aid. Noah gasped. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. Madison's face went white. Officer Keene said calmly, Someone turned this in, found it on the sidewalk near the community hall. Tyler stared at the bag like it was a grenade. That's mine, I said. Officer Keene nodded. I know. So the question is, how did it end up on the sidewalk? Tyler's eyes flicked to Madison. Madison's eyes flicked to Noah. Noah looked like he might cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just looked at my grandchildren and said, Tell the truth. Madison's lips trembled. We were going to mess with you. Tyler's face tightened. It was supposed to be a joke. Officer Keene's expression didn't change. A joke? Tyler's voice got defensive. We weren't going to keep it. We wanted to see if he'd notice. Officer Keene nodded slowly, like he'd heard that excuse before in other forms. He looked at me. You want to file a report? Tyler's eyes widened in panic. No, Grandpa, please. Noah whimpered. I didn't want to do it. Madison whispered. It was Tyler's idea. Tyler snapped. It was not. I held up a hand. Officer Keene watched me, waiting. I took a breath. No report, I said. Not today. Tyler exhaled, shaky relief. Officer Keene looked at the kids. You understand how quickly a joke becomes theft? Tyler swallowed. Yes. Officer Keene handed me the bag, nodded once, and walked back to his car. When he drove away, my grandchildren stood frozen, the air around them suddenly heavier. Madison's eyes were wet. She blinked hard like she refused to let tears fall. Tyler stared at the ground, jaw clenched like he was trying to hold his pride together. Noah sniffed and wiped his nose on his sleeve. I didn't gloat. I didn't shame. I said, back to the hall. They followed without arguing. When we returned, the seniors were waiting. Not with anger, with quiet attention. Earl stood at the front like a man about to deliver a verdict. I motioned my grandchildren to the center of the room. They stood there, 3 kids surrounded by elders who had lived long enough to understand how small humiliation feels and how big consequences can become. I pointed to 3 chairs. Sit, I said. They sat. I stood in front of them and said, You want to know why this matters? Tyler didn't look up. Madison's hands twisted in her lap. Noah's lower lip trembled. I nodded to Mrs. Delaney. She stood slowly, leaning on her cane, and walked to Tyler. She didn't speak right away. She just looked at him until he finally lifted his eyes. My grandson took my wedding ring, she said quietly. Tyler blinked, shocked. He said it was a joke, she continued. He thought it was funny to watch me panic. Madison's breath caught. Mrs. Delaney's voice stayed steady. I didn't get it back until I called the police. And by then, the joke had made me feel like my life was a toy. Tyler swallowed hard. Mrs. Delaney touched his shoulder, gentle. You don't have to become that kind of person. She sat back down. Mr. Ruiz stood next. My hands shake, he said. People think that means I am weak. They speak over me. They grab things out of my hands. They rush me. Madison's face burned. He looked directly at her. Today you slowed down. You listened. That is respect. Madison's eyes filled, and this time a tear slipped free. Sam stood last. When I was 10, he said, my father told me respect wasn't something you begged for. It was something you practiced, like tying your shoes, like brushing your teeth, every day. Noah stared at him wide-eyed. Sam smiled at Noah. You practiced today. Noah whispered, I did. Earl clapped his hands once, sharp. Now, he said, the recruits will speak. Tyler flinched at the word recruits, but he didn't argue this time. He stood slowly. His voice was rough. I didn't think about any of this. He swallowed. I just thought Grandpa was fine, like he didn't care. My chest tightened, but I didn't interrupt. Tyler continued. I didn't mean to be cruel. He looked at me finally, eyes shiny but stubborn. I'm sorry. Madison stood next, wiping her face quickly like she was angry at herself for crying. I didn't think it mattered, she said. I thought it was just words. She looked at Mr. Ruiz, then at me. I'm sorry. Noah stood last, voice small. I'm sorry too. Then he added, honest and raw, I didn't want Grandpa to be sad. That was the first time anyone had said the word sad all weekend. Not old, not boring, not annoying, sad. That's when I felt my anger loosen, not disappear, but soften into something I could use instead of something that would use me. I walked to the whiteboard and erased the word practicum. Then I wrote one sentence. Respect is what you do when no one is watching. I turned to them. You want your phones back? I asked. Tyler nodded quickly. Madison nodded too. Noah nodded like his neck was hinged. I pointed at the seniors. Go thank them, one by one. Tyler hesitated. Madison hesitated. Noah hesitated. Then Tyler walked to Mrs. Delaney first. He didn't hug her like a teenager forced into politeness. He stood in front of her and said, Thank you for talking to me. Mrs. Delaney smiled. You're welcome. Madison walked to Mr. Ruiz. Thank you, she said, voice shaky. Mr. Ruiz nodded. You did well. Noah walked to Sam and said, Thank you for telling me stories. Sam chuckled. Any time. When they finished, I unlocked my truck and handed their phones back. Tyler grabbed his like he'd been underwater and could finally breathe. Madison clutched hers, then hesitated. Noah turned his on immediately and then stopped, looking at me. What now? He asked. Now, I said. We go home. On the drive back, it was quiet in a different way. Not the quiet of disinterest, the quiet of thought. When we got home, Tyler surprised me. He went to my garage without being asked and came back holding my wooden box. He set it on my kitchen table carefully. I didn't take the watch, he said, voice low, but I want to help fix it. My throat tightened. Madison cleared her throat. I did it. Tyler's head snapped toward her. Madison's face crumpled. I went into your room. I saw the box earlier and I was curious. I opened it and the watch slipped out. Her voice broke. I panicked. I put it back and pretended it didn't happen. I watched her, 14 years old, trying to hold up the weight of guilt like it was a backpack too heavy for her shoulders. Tyler's anger flared. Why would you? I raised my hand. Stop, I said. Tyler stopped immediately. That alone told me the day had mattered. I looked at Madison. Thank you for telling the truth. Madison sniffed. I'm sorry. I know, I replied. Noah whispered. I saw her do it. Madison's head snapped toward him. Noah? He shrank. I didn't know what to do. I nodded at him. You do now. Noah swallowed. Yes. I opened the box and lifted the watch again. It can be repaired, I said. Madison looked hopeful and afraid. You're not going to hate me? I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, I love you. That's why I'm teaching you. Her face crumpled and she cried, quiet but real. Tyler looked away, blinking hard. Noah climbed into my lap like he hadn't done in years. That night, we ate dinner at the table again. Phones stayed off without me asking. Tyler told me about a teacher he couldn't stand and why. Madison told me about a friend who'd been cruel at school. Noah told me about a kid on his soccer team who cheated. They talked like they had something inside worth sharing. After dinner, Tyler asked, Can you teach me how to use a map again? Madison asked, Can I come with you to the hall sometime? Noah asked, Can Sam tell me another story? I said yes to all of it. Sunday morning, we went back to the community hall. Not because I forced them, but because they wanted to. Tyler carried a box of donuts like a peace offering. Madison brought a stack of printed photos from her phone, pictures she'd taken of the seniors the day before when they were smiling, not when they were watching her like a judge. Noah brought a deck of cards and asked Sam if he wanted to play. I stood in the doorway and watched my grandchildren move through the room differently. They said hello first. They looked people in the eye. They offered help without waiting to be asked. And in that small, ordinary shift, I saw the real lesson settle in. Not obedience, not fear, awareness. Before Claire came to pick them up, Tyler pulled me aside. He looked uncomfortable, like he was trying to say something that didn't fit his usual shape. "I didn't mean what I said," he muttered. "What did you say?" I asked. Though I knew. He swallowed. "That you don't go anywhere." I stared at him. He looked at me, eyes serious. "You go places. You matter. I didn't see it." I nodded once. "That's why I made you see it," I said. He gave a short, shaky laugh, half embarrassed, half relieved. "You're scary when you're calm." I smiled. "Good." Madison hugged me tight when her mother's car pulled into the driveway. Noah hugged me too, and he whispered, "I'm going to be nice to you now." I kissed the top of his head. "Do it because you mean it, not because you're afraid." He nodded like he understood. When Claire drove away with them, my house fell quiet again. But it wasn't empty. Not like Tyler had assumed. It was full of the things that had always been here. The smell of lemon polish, the soft creak of old floorboards, the memory of my wife in the corners of every room, and now, the echo of my grandchildren's voices saying hello like I was a person. I went to my kitchen table, opened the wooden box, and held the cracked watch one more time. Glass can be replaced, metal can be repaired, but respect, once broken, takes a different kind of work, the kind you do before it shatters completely. I looked out my window at the quiet street and let myself breathe. They had tested whether I was too old to notice. Now they knew the truth. Old doesn't mean blind. Old means you've had enough time to learn exactly how to teach a lesson that lasts.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.